Welcome back to authentication and authorization. So now we're going to actually start locking down our routes so that logged in users can only see specific things, non-logged in users can only see other things. So for our app, we can, first we can sign up. So if I do new user 12345 at yahoo.com, give a valid password, that actually signs us up and redirects us to our page. See, we just got created as user ID 10. And now I can also log in with that. So if I go home and go to login, I can put in that info and log in as that user also. So now that user exists. But what I want to happen is I should not be allowed to go to Berto's sticker page. And I shouldn't be allowed to go to CJ's either. Oh, well, if I do 2, I shouldn't be allowed to see this. I should only be allowed to see my page, and I should see unauthorized for everything else. And same thing, like if I log out, I guess I don't have a way. I guess right now if I cleared the cookie, so if I go here and just clear the cookie, once I'm logged out, I shouldn't be able to see anything. Like I should see unauthorized on every single page except for login and sign up. So that's what we're going to work on now. Now let's remind ourselves of the authorization process. So authorization is all about, are you allowed to see this? So we already have authentication. So we've either set a cookie or you've signed up and then logged in and we've set a cookie. But now we want to see if, now that you're logged in, are you actually allowed to see these things, the things inside my app? So, right, so authentication is who are you? That's signing in, signing out, verifying passwords. We're now talking about authorization. So that's who can see what permissions do you have, access control. Yeah, okay, let's just look at this diagram. So the client makes a request to the server. In this case, they want to do an update. So a put request on articles/24. The idea is they want to do something. They want to make an update on that URL. Along with that request, they send their cookie. And their cookie has their user ID inside of it. And hopefully it's signed like we've set it up, so that way the server can verify that it was the one that set that cookie. But the client makes the request to do something that only user ID 17 should be allowed to do. So this request contains a couple of things. The first thing is, what would you like to do? In this case, update the article with the ID 24. Who are you? Well, that comes across in your cookie. So after you logged in, it set a cookie in the browser. And now when you make this request, it's sending that cookie over. So who are they? They are user ID 17. So what we do is we now look in the database. So first, we find the article with that ID 24, just to see if it actually exists. Okay, we have found it. We now want to verify that the ID of the logged in user, in this case 17, matches the ID of the article that they're trying to make an update to. And in this case, it does, so we allow that action to happen. And so here's some sample code. We'll actually code it up. But there are multiple things you can do if they were not allowed access to that. So you could redirect to the login page. You could redirect to some other page like their dashboard or their user page. You could send a 404. There are multiple things you can do. But let's look at that as a flow diagram. So first, check to see if they have a cookie or a session, right? So who are they? In this case, we're looking for the cookie with the user ID. If you found that, so let's say you didn't find that, immediately return an unauthorized error because they did not have that cookie set. But if they did have that cookie set, you then look in the database for something. Once you've retrieved it, you want to check and see, does the ID of the logged in user match the user ID of the resource? So whatever resource you're querying will be restricted to some user ID. So you want to make sure that the cookie's user ID matches that. If it doesn't, unauthorized, they're not allowed to do that. If it does, you then respond with that requested resource or you make the update. You essentially allow the action to happen. So that's the overall view of what's going to happen with authorization. Let's actually make it happen. So let's go to our server-side code. And we're going to make it so visitors can only see the home page. So if you're not logged in, you should just be immediately redirected to the home page, whatever view you visit. So like if I click on this, I should be redirected to the home page, and I shouldn't even be able to see that. So we're going to create an isLoggedIn middleware. Now what this is it's going to be a middleware function that checks for the cookie, right? If we look at that flow, this middleware is going to check for this cookie. So let's do that. Now, the things we actually want the users to be logged in for are these routes in here, right? So being able to get a specific user or being able to get the stickers for a user, we want you to be logged in for all of those things. So let's create, just a second, take a break. Right here in Auth, I'm going to create some middleware functions, and then we're going to use them elsewhere. So inside of Auth, let's create a new file. We'll call it middleware.js. And here we're going to create a function. And we're going to say ensure logged in. Now, essentially, this is going to check for the cookie. And if it's not found, immediately return unauthorized. So that's what we're going to do right now. So that takes some rec res and next, because this is a middleware function. And what we want to do is we want to check for that cookie. So if we need to check rec.signed cookies. Now, if you remember earlier, we used cookie best practices. So the cookie is going to be signed. And we want to look at the user ID. So if that exists, go on to the next thing. So great, we have verified that you have that cookie. You're allowed to go on to the next middleware or route handler. Else, we'll actually just immediately return an error. So next, pass in a new error, and we'll say unauthorized. And right here, we'll set the status. So I'll say res.status is 401. So this is a middleware function, and you know that because it takes in a request, a response, and next. So right now I'm just going to log the cookie so we can actually see what's coming over. But what's going to happen is it's going to make sure that user ID is set on the cookies. And if it is, it'll allow that to pass through. If it's not, it will immediately return unauthorized. If we look at our flow diagram, we're actually following this outside one. So check for the cookie. We did not find it. Return an unauthorized error. So let's actually try to use this. So in here, I'm going to module.exports an object that has the ensure logged in function available on it as a property. Now I'm going to bring this into app.js because the idea is I want to protect all routes inside of user. I want to make sure that you're logged in for all of those routes. So right in here, I'm just going to require in my auth middleware. So it's going to be require, go into the auth folder and grab the middleware file. And now auth middleware has this ensure logged in function on it. So the neat thing about middleware is you can pass them into a use function. So right here, I'm just going to say auth middleware.ensure logged in. And now every single request will go through this middleware before it hits the user route. So when a request comes in, it's actually going to hit this middleware. We're going to log the cookies. We're going to see if they have a user ID and then say next. If they don't have a user ID, then we'll return unauthorized. So we'll go back over to the browser. Now, if we look at our cookies, we have no cookies, right? So we cleared the cookies out. And so now if we go to a page of a user, we get this error, user not found and we suck. That was one we set up a really long time ago. But if we check out the network tab, let's see what actually happened. So we're actually getting back this unauthorized error, right? Because we're not logged in. We don't have a cookie set. And so now when this page tried to make a GET request to user/2, it immediately returned unauthorized. So this is the beginnings of authorization. We're locking down routes based on the cookies that are getting sent to the server. So let's actually do something with this error on the client side. And before we do that, let's check a box. So we do have this isLoggedIn middleware. I guess I called it ensure logged in. I'm sorry, I'm not that consistent. So we're checking that the user ID cookie is set, and we're sending an unauthorized error message if it's not. So right now, we want to redirect to the login form. So on the client side, if I hit a page that I don't have access to, like this, instead of showing this silly error message, let's redirect to the login page. So let's save this. We're going to go over to our client side now. Client side code. Now, if you'll remember, let's just close all this stuff out. So this page right here is user.html. So we actually want to check on there. And that's going to be in user.js. So you'll notice the wesock function is all the way at the bottom down here. But let's not call it wesock. Let's call it error. Well, let's say handle error. And we'll rename the wesock function to be handle error. We'll accept the error, and right now we'll just console.error the error instead of alerting wesock. So now if I refresh the page, look at the console. Okay, it actually is logging the error. We'll notice the res.status is 500. I do want that to be 401, right? Because the message is unauthorized. Let's see what's going on there. So if I go over to my server-side code, and we look at our error handler in app.js. Okay, so this says if the error has a status. So in this case, we are adding a status to the error, but in the case of our middleware, we're not adding a status to the error, we're just setting the status here. So what I want to do is if error.status or response.status code or 500. So that should send 401. So now if I refresh this page, we do get an error, and now it's actually bringing that error code through. Cool. But we want to redirect to the login page. So let's just do that right here. So on the client side, this handle error function can just immediately redirect to the login page. So I'm just going to say window.location equals /login.html. And if we refresh, now it immediately redirects us. So if I try to go home, right now I'm not logged in, right? If I look at application, look at the cookies, if I try to go to anybody's page, I just immediately get redirected to login. So we're really, really hunkering down, and we're saying you have to be logged in to see any of this stuff. Fantastic. Alrighty, so now what I want to happen is if I do log in, so let's log in as a valid user. I can see my page, but I don't want to be able to see anybody else's page. And right now I can. So if we look at my to-do, okay, so we are redirecting. Visitors can now only see the home page and log in. But now logged in users can only see their page. So we're now going to create an allowAccess middleware. And what that is going to do is it's going to make sure that the ID set on the cookie matches the ID of the URL that they're requesting, right? So if we go back into our routes and we go into user.js, both of these routes, one of them gets a user by ID, the other one gets the stickers for a user. So for example, if I go to localhost 3000 user 1, that gives me back that user. If I go user 2, I get back that user. If I go user 2/sticker, I get back all of their stickers. So these routes have the user ID in the URL, right? So what we want to do is we want to say only the user with the cookie set as this specific user ID is allowed to request this. If those two don't match, then give an unauthorized error. So let's do that. So our to-do says allowAccess middleware. So let's create that in here. So we're going to create a function called allowAccess that takes the request, the response, and next. And actually, I forgot, we were logging signed cookies. Let's take a look at what was being logged. User ID, yeah. So those signed cookies are actually coming over now after I logged in. Very cool. But we're working on this allowAccess thing. So what I want to happen, actually I'm going to copy this exactly, but it's just a little more restrictive. So it's going to say if rec.signedcookies.userid is equal to rec.params.id, right? Because if we look in this route, rec.params.id is that right there. And we want to make sure that the cookie matches that. Because if it doesn't match that, then that's not the same user, and we want to give it an unauthorized message. So we do the exact same thing, right? Unauthorized. And now we need to actually use this. So we could potentially bring it in app.js. So I could say ensure logged in and auth middleware.allowAccess for all routes. But I actually found out earlier there's a small error. So let's just try this and see what happens. So now I'm currently logged in as user ID 3. If I request 1, it redirects me to the login page. But if I go to /user ID 3, I get redirected as well, and I shouldn't actually be redirected. The issue is this middleware is trying to access rec.params.id, and that only exists inside of this route because that actually has the URL in there. So the fix for that is to actually bring this middleware into the router itself. So in here, let's bring in our auth middleware. So const auth middleware equals require. And we're going to go up one folder into the auth folder and get the middleware file. And now on both of these routes, we can pass it in as a parameter. So here I can say auth middleware.allowAccess. And so now both of these routes will be protected by that. So it's going to compare the ID of the URL to the ID of the cookie. And if they match, it'll allow it. If not, it'll give it unauthorized access. So if we go home, if we try to go there, we get redirected. But if I try to go to user ID 3, who am I logged in as? I think I'm user ID 3. Oh, okay. Let's see. So the error says route.get requires callback functions but got object undefined. I am not exporting allowAccess from my middleware. So ensure logged in, also export allowAccess. Okay, now it's restarted. Now if I go home and try to go to user ID 3, it actually works. Okay, so I'm logged in as user ID 3, and I can actually see my page. But if I go to any other page, I get redirected to the login page. So another level of authorization applied, and this time we're getting very specific, like making sure the URL actually matches the cookie. So let's check some boxes. So we've got our middleware. The ID in the URL must match the user ID cookie. That is correct. We send an unauthorized error message. Yes, we do. Now here's one thing we want to do. Redirect to the user page if they visit the home page. So right now I am logged in as user 3, right? So I can actually go to user ID 3 and that works. But instead of like getting redirected to the login page or allowing me to go to the home page, I should automatically be redirected to my page, no matter which page I go to. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually set the user ID in local storage so that we can access it. Now, if you noticed, because we're using HTTP only cookies, so you'll see that checkbox HTTP only. If I do document.cookie, I actually don't have access to that cookie. And that's actually pretty secure, because if there was like a malicious script running on my site, it wouldn't be able to send those cookies to any external resource. So that's a good thing. But what we want to happen is after logging in, we want to set a user ID in local storage so that way we can redirect to their page if we need to. And let's clear local storage right now. Okay, so we'll have to do this on the login page. So if we go to the client and we go to login.js, you'll notice after logging in, it redirects to the user page. But what we want to do is right here say window.local, actually you don't have to use window. If you just say local storage dot user ID, so we're going to set user ID equal to result.id. So after logging in, actually put it into local storage. Now let's see what happens. So if I go to login, nope, don't do that. Let's do that. If I log in as a valid user, hello@world.com, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I get redirected to my page, very nice. But if I look at local storage, we now have that in local storage. So here's what I can do. On any other page, if we're not on the user page, just redirect the user. If we're not on the user page and the user ID here is set, then redirect to that user specific page. So Yeah, let's actually do this on the login page first, right? Because if we get redirected to if we go to the login page and we're already logged in, meaning localStorage.userid is already set, then we should just go to that specific page. So, time to take a break. So we'll finish this up real quick, take a quick break, and then we'll finish up after that. So here, I just want to, let's say, redirect if logged in, and invoke that function. And let's actually define this in the shared file. So in here, I'm going to create a function called redirect if logged in. And here's what it's going to do. It's going to check localStorage.userid. So if that exists, then just redirect to the user page for that specific user. Right, so we'll do that on the login page. Redirect if logged in. We'll also do that on the sign up page. Like if you're already logged in, no use signing up, right? Yeah, so let's check it out. And actually, we want to do that on the home page too, right? Because if you're on the home page, we just want to redirect you to your specific page. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and just remove Berto and CJ buttons here because you should not be able to go to their page anymore because it's their specific page. And here, I'm just going to add a script that redirects you to your page if you're logged in. And now, just like that, if I try to go to the home page, let's refresh it. Hard refresh it. Let's see if it's working. So let's go to sources. Oh, well, obviously it doesn't exist. I have to actually bring in shared. So right here, we'll bring in scripts. Shared. Right, so now we tried to go to the home page, but it instantly redirects us to that page. And if we try to go to like a user ID 4, it goes to login, which immediately redirects us to our page. So ladies and gentlemen, we are locked down, right? So like users can only see their specific page, right? They get immediately redirected. If they could try to go to somebody else's page, they get redirected. First, they get redirected to login, which eventually leads them there. If they try to go to like signup.html, you're already logged in, so it just immediately redirects you there. Cool. Let's check some boxes. So redirect to the user page if they visit the home page. Done. Set the user ID in local storage after logging in and signing up. So we did it after logging in. We should do it after signing up as well. So client-side code. In login, we are setting the ID and redirecting. And in sign up, we are setting the ID and redirecting. You know it. Create a function. So let's say function set ID redirect. Takes in a result. Sets the ID on local storage and redirects. So in sign up, we will call that with result. And in login, we will also call that with result. So now, and actually I think on my checklist I do have, we should clear the cookie with the auth logout. So first on the client side, let's create a logout page. So here I'm just going to create a new file, call it logout.html. I'm just going to copy what we have for the index page into logout. And I'm going to update the header, say logging out of sticker-mania, ... We'll remove those buttons. We don't want to do that. But we will just create a script, and inside of here we'll say log out. And we'll define this in shared. So Right now, on the single user page, let's add a logout button. So up top we have home. Well, let's actually just make this logout because they can't even go home. So I'm going to say logout. That's going to go to logout.html. So now when they're here, and let's make this a different color, button danger. Okay, so they can click logout. That goes to this page. jQuery is not defined, logout is not defined. All of those things are true. So let's grab jQuery and then go into logout.html. Let's make sure we bring that in before shared. Now in shared, let's define this logout function. So we'll go into scripts, shared. Down here at the bottom, let's create a function, call it logout. Here we just want to clear user ID. So I think it's a localStorage.remove item, or is it clear item? We'll find out, and pass in user ID. So right now we just want to clear that. So if I refresh this page, if we look at local storage, we've cleared it. So remove item is a valid thing on local storage. So we've actually cleared it. And now if we go to the home page, it doesn't redirect us, right? Because we are no longer logged in. Well, at least in terms of local storage, the cookie is still there. But now we need to make that request, make a request to the server to try to log out. And we'll create that route. So let's go back over to the server side. In our route here, we will create a get route that just clears the cookie. So here I'll say router.get/logout. Logout. It's a request handler. Recres. This clears the cookie. So response, clear cookie. We're going to clear user ID. And just respond with JSON. And send a message that is an emoji with a lock. Yeah, like that. I don't know. So they are now logged out. So now that they have this get route, let's actually call it on the front end. So in this logout function, we'll say jQuery.get. We want to grab the auth URL /logout. If we remind ourselves, auth URL is the host URL with auth on the end of it, and then now we're going to add logout on the end of it. So get that. Then you should get some result. We'll log the result. So now if I go to the /logout page.html, link the console. So it made that GET request. And now if we look at the network, well, actually, no, if we look at the cookies, it should have cleared that cookie. Yeah, that cookie is no longer there. So now that we've cleared the cookie, we just want, on the client side, we want to redirect to the home page. So actually, we could redirect to the login page. So let's say window.location equals /login.html, right? Because you just logged out, so why not go to the login page? Now I'll refresh this. It does it, and now we go to the login page. Sweet. Okay. Let's see the boxes here. Add a logout route that clears it. Yes. Clearing the cookie, and we also are redirecting to the login page after logging out. So let's tour the application. So we can go home. Here we can sign up. So let's be new user 1234567 at yahoo.com. And put in a password 123456. Try to sign up. We're infinitely redirecting. And do you know why? Because in the sign up, I'm just going to close this tab. Sorry, guys. In the sign up, we forgot to set the cookie. So that's easy enough. So let's go to the server-side code. Click on index. And you'll notice right here, and let me zoom out a bit. So this is the login route. And when they log in, we're setting the cookie, right? But we want to do that exact same thing whenever they sign up as well to make it easy for them. So let's create a function that does this. So yeah, this just accepts in rec and res and user. So we'll say set user ID cookie. It takes in the request and the response. And up here, we'll create that function. Function set user ID cookie. Takes in the request, the response, and the user. Well, actually, it takes in the ID. So let's just throw the ID right there. And then when we call it, we'll pass in user.id. So set user ID cookie. That does it. Now, if we go up to our sign up route, so this is our sign up route, we also want to set the cookie here. So right before we send back this message, we'll set the cookie with that ID. So now, after signing up, your cookie will also get set. No errors in the console. Let's try it out. So go to localhost 3000. Not 3000. Localhost 8080. That's where our client is. And let us clear local storage, because I believe that is what is messing us up. Actually, let's go to logout. I'm sorry. Okay, localhost 8080/logout. That way it'll clear local storage. Cool. Okay. Now if we go to application, we have no local storage, we have no cookie, and we have no local storage. Cool. We're clean slate. So let's sign up. Moment of truth. Sign up. We're going to sign up as cool guy 1972 at yahoo.com. Create a password, sign up. Cool, we get redirected to our page. But if I try to go to somebody else, we get redirected back to our page. If I try to go to the login page, we get redirected back to our page. So we're totally locked down. And now if I log out, I'm back to the login page. And if I go home, I can see that. If I try to go to any user, I get redirected to the login page. So I believe we've done it. Let's check some more boxes. Yeah, we've done it. We'll do a quick tour of what just happened. So we created middleware functions. Now, middleware functions are pretty much like request handlers. They take in the request, the response, and the next function. And so for this ensure logged in one, the only thing we're making sure is that there is a user ID on the signed cookies of the request. And I'm just going to remove this console log for now. So we're making sure that when the request comes in, it actually has a signed cookie that is the user ID. And if we look at our flow here, that's the first step right here. So do they have that cookie in their request? And if they do, in our case, we're just saying go on to the next thing. So we're not exactly this granular in terms of querying the database. But here if they have that user ID, then yeah, go on to the next thing. Like any other routes that come after this are allowed. If they don't have that cookie, immediately return unauthorized, and that page just doesn't work. And so where we use that is in app.js. So in here, we require in our auth middleware, so those two functions that we just created. But then right here on the user route is where we say ensure logged in. So that protects any request coming in. If that request does not have a user ID on the cookie, it will immediately block it, and it won't even make it into that router. So that's the first step. We then created this allowAccess middleware. And this is doing something very similar to this. So does the user ID of the logged in user match the user ID of the resource? In our case, the resource is the user and the user stickers, right? So if we look at these two routes, this is getting all of the stickers. This is getting the user with one specific ID, and this is getting all the stickers for that specific user with that ID. So this allowAccess middleware function we created checks to see if the user ID on the cookie matches the ID in the URL, in rec.params.id. If they matched, you're allowed to view that page. So you're allowed to view your own stickers, your own page. If they don't match, it sends back 401 unauthorized. So you cannot view anyone else's page. We use that in the route by just requiring in the auth middleware and then putting it right before the request handler. And that just says that middleware function will have to run first. And if it sees that it's unauthorized, it will actually return that immediately, and it won't ever make it into this request handler. So that is the authorization part. The next part is all about creating an admin page to like delete users and basically having a user that is all seeing and can do everything on the site. But that's it for now. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.